Greetings, everybody. You probably thought we forgot about you or that we're gone. Truthfully, I kind of thought we were too, because by some weird miracle, we're making our episode on Starcraft II Wings of Liberty now. The irony is, fun fact, guys, our last episode, episode 6, about Kerrigan, that was January 21st. That was when it aired. So we almost went a year. So good job coming back. Thanks. We have both Jackson and Ian here. Thanks for coming.
You might say, hell, it's about time.
Damn it, Jack. I was thinking the same thing.
Touche. You know, I think we've all just been busy because, truthfully, the last time I played StarCraft II was June 10th. So now I got to go back and beat Legacy of the Void. I think that's what I'll start doing this month. Get back into there. I'm about a third into that. But with that being said, I have happily beaten Wings of Liberty again, all the way through. Grabbed a lot of achievements this time in the process, and I beat it on hard difficulty, which the first time I played Wings of Liberty, I beat it on medium, or the default normal difficulty. How about you guys?
What even are the difficulty settings on it? Is it...
Brutal is like the hardest one?
Yeah, brutal. That was what I was thinking. I don't think Alex beat it on brutal is what I was thinking, but yeah, last time I did it, it was on actually brutal. Some of those levels are brutal.
To my knowledge, you're the only one here who's beating it on brutal, Jack. Because there's a default. I think there's a normal. There's like an easy, which is kind of like a hold your hand story mode, and then there's a hard. So there's 4, and then there's brutal.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, yep. I did hard. I did not beat it on brutal. Maybe next time I play it, I'll do brutal, but I have not done that.
Yeah, it's definitely... It's a lot harder than hard, I'll say that. There's some kind of levels where you have to do some sort of strategies. Not so much in Wings of Liberty, but some of the other expansions, there was at least one level in Legacy of the Void that was nearly impossible unless you did it one certain way.
I'd imagine the final levels on Char would be brutal on brutal, because I barely beat some of those on hard. So props to you for doing that.
Yeah, it was the last level was very hard. I've never beaten it until I finally I was looking at some stuff in Reddit that people said, and somebody's like, just make a bunch of siege tanks, and I'm like, how could that work? So I did it. I just only made siege tanks. I had like 50 siege tanks on each side, and it worked perfectly. It literally annihilated anything that came into range. Literally, Ultralisk, Kerrigan, just anything died the second it got in the range. So that's a strategy for the last level, and everybody just make sure you do the Nidus Worm route, because obviously you can't have air units coming after you.
Wow. Yeah, I was thinking, what about the air units? Oh, the Nidus Worm route. You just said it.
Yeah, you just gotta have Nidus Worms take out the air units.
Okay. So here's my next question. Does that mean somebody can beat it on brutal using the air route?
Yes, obviously there's strategies to do it, but it's probably harder.
That sounds like the more difficult route.
Yeah. For people who are actually good at micro, maybe it isn't, but this was just a pretty straight, easy way to do it.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So, diving straight into StarCraft II, I think it's important to mention this difference as far as StarCraft II in regards to StarCraft 1. As you guys know, StarCraft 2 was kind of when Blizzard really was getting big. They were truly flexing their wallets. They were flexing their development team. They were coming in hot with this game. And in other words, they did deliver us a really good sequel to StarCraft, but as far as the campaign goes, it's obvious that they took a very different route as far as how storytelling is delivered, because they gave a more cinematic experience. and they focused on more of like kind of like a AAA gaming approach. And obviously, whereas the first game was kind of a pure focus on like the general universe, Wings of Liberty obviously was they kind of centered on a main character. I would say Wings of Liberty is Jim Raynor's story. It's his game. This is a central theme to a character that we're supposed to kind of grow attached to, get to know. Here's a fun fact about StarCraft II is when Blizzard, you know, got started getting into this, realizing, hey, we got all these resources, we're gonna really kind of send ripples through the gaming community. They debated getting like a big name actor to play Jim Raynor. They were originally not going to use the guy who voiced him in the first game. His name is Robert Clotworthy, if I'm not mistaken. And they almost went that route, but I don't know. I think it was Chris Metzen. Through some talkings, they said, "Why don't we just use the same guy?" So they did. They brought in Robert, and I guess they couldn't have been happier because, and I'll be honest too, I think that was the best decision right there because they're like, wait, this guy was just made to play Jim Raynor, and he killed it. So I just wanted to open up with that. I think this is clearly Jim Raynor's expansion or game, but it's just the whole story, everything about it was just kind of unique and cool.
Yeah, I was thinking about this too because, as you said, it's been a while since we talked about playing this in order to do the episode, and then life happened for all of us. It's now been a while, but I was thinking back to some of the things I was feeling and thinking as we played through Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm and stuff, like just reliving the StarCraft II experience. To your point earlier about like Blizzard is hitting their stride at this point, right? Wings of Liberty comes out in 2010, and WoW is like 6 years old at this point. And WoW was really riding off the coattails of a great success of Warcraft 3, and that was them telling their RTS stories in a very different way. You got Warcraft, and it's very simple mechanics for how they want to create this RTS that was fun and interesting. And Warcraft 2, like Warcraft 1 mechanics are like brain dead. I think we talked about that in the other ones. There's just it's cancer to play it now.
Yeah.
But Warcraft 2, much different. StarCraft then overhauls that and makes it bigger, and the armies are bigger. And it's not, you get these like hero type characters, but they're just slightly buffed versions that die from stupid spells and other things all the time too. And then you go to Warcraft 3, which is a different kind of storytelling focused around main characters that are also your heroes that have these hero spells. And StarCraft 2 comes out, and they try to make a game that's mostly like it has some of those things that are successful, but also very much it's not Warcraft 3 in space is I guess what I would say. And I was kind of looking forward to StarCraft 2 being like that when it originally came out all those years ago. I was like, oh man, because I was in love with Warcraft 3. I thought, I hope they make it like Warcraft 3 but in space, but with like the StarCraft characters that I love and all this stuff, and you're like leveling up Zeratul or Raynor or whatever as you go. And like you kind of get flavors of that as they change the expansions, right? And we'll talk Heart of the Swarm the next time. Obviously, that's a very different way that they approached Wings of Liberty. But Wings of Liberty was more like, hey, this is StarCraft. It's still StarCraft. It's not solely focused on the hero, but we're going to still tell it from the character's lens. And it's all about Jim Raynor, who then sets up everything else that's going to happen in the universe, and then it starts to shift the focus onto a different character, which we can talk about later. But that's kind of my take on it too when we're talking about StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty up front, is they really do change the way that they tell the story, but it still feels very much like StarCraft, as opposed to other sequels to games that don't really give you that same feel, where they feel very different at heart.
Yeah, I think we say StarCraft 2, at least Wings of Liberty, it did kind of feel more like the original StarCraft, because obviously when we get the Heart of the Swarm, it's Kerrigan is kind of this character that you're like leveling up a little bit. So, and then also Kerrigan got into like the DBZ territory of leveling up almost, and Wings of Liberty was a lot more grounded. It was still focusing on Meeks, Kerrigan's still the villain in it. And Wings of Liberty was just it's an interesting kind of start to StarCraft 2, knowing how the story kind of ends. It's more grounded than just ends up kind of going complete cosmic Amon God destroying the universe. It's a tone shift, that's for sure.
Amon, don't want to get too far into Legacy of the Void, but Amon feels like a true, like the 2010 Blizzard shaping of their stories. They always go to an old god, basically. It's just same monster, different universe, essentially speaking. But yeah, I would agree with everything you guys said. There's a certain level of grounded reality in these ones. Realism is what word I'm looking for. So the YouTube algorithm is kind of stupid because I think when I was releasing our last 6 episodes, it was like kind of like a year's time is when those were coming out, maybe longer. And you would think if I'm obsessed with StarCraft and looking, it would tell me about other StarCraft podcasts, but it didn't. But I discovered that there was another like smaller StarCraft podcast group doing similar things to what we were, but it stumbled on it by accident. But I'll put a link to what they were showing because those guys managed to get some of the voice actors of the game in there, which is really cool. And there was one episode, this is the one I'll send a link to, is where they talk to Robert Clotworthy, the voice of Jim Raynor, and he gives a lot of really cool insight to this story. And there's one thing that he said that really stood to me is when what's his face? Metzen. When Chris Metzen was kind of preparing him for what they were planning on doing with StarCraft II, Chris Metzen basically told him, and to be honest, it's possible he told him this for StarCraft 1. So that I'm fuzzy on. But this is, regardless, that doesn't matter. What matters is he told him the identity of what he wanted his character, Jim Raynor, to be. And he basically told him this. He's like, you're basically playing the last honest guy in the universe. That's the identity of Jim Raynor. That was Metzen's idea, is he's the last honest guy in like a corrupt, evil universe. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool thing to describe Jim Raynor as.
It's funny though because I feel like Matt Horner is actually the most honest guy in the campaign. Matt Horner is the best of the guys. Matt Horner's Jim Raynor's number 2, or he's like number 1 guy, and he's really the only one that's keeping everything afloat or on the path because he's the one who truly believes in Jim Raynor even after Jim Raynor has kind of like lost his way, which was a cool thing to see in the story because I do agree, like Jim Raynor has this burning sense of justice and fire, but by Wings of Liberty it turns into retribution. And then Matt Horner is there to help keep him kind of on the rails, which was a good character to add, in my opinion.
Which I'm thinking probably was more StarCraft 1, to be honest, because that would make sense for StarCraft 1, but even again, then there was Kerrigan, so I don't know.
No, you're probably right. Maybe it was StarCraft 1. Either way, that was how he was introduced to how he should film this character. Not film, but you get the idea. Point is, and to add to Ian's point, I actually like that he brought up Matt Horner. So what I like about StarCraft was during playing all these games, including StarCraft 2 and StarCraft 1, I've been reading the books in between, the comics. What's really cool about this old school Blizzard, we're talking like 2000s era Blizzard, is they're very they did a good job knitting together their universe. And StarCraft is pretty consistent within itself. You can see the cracks. You can see when certain retcons start to make their way in, obviously. But it holds up really well to this day with just the material we have. So an example I'll give is Matt Horner. He was introduced as early as StarCraft 1. His character was introduced in one of the earlier StarCraft novels. I think it's like the second one called the Queen of Blades. That's the one where it kind of gives the context of Jim on Char, and when Kerrigan changes, Matt Horner is his wingman in that book. So this guy goes even like years before StarCraft II. So it's cool that they held to that. The Protoss character in the campaign, Selendis, she's in the Dark Templar trilogy. There's a lot of really cool little Easter eggs that are linked to the books and the comics. The jukebox in the Joey Ray bar, the prequel book that Christine Golden wrote, I think it's called Devil's Due. Tychus and Jim Raynor got that jukebox because they stole it from a train heist. Like, there's all these little fun little connections that kind of hold up, and that you can be like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's where all that is. So yeah, I'm glad you brought up Matt Horner.
I think StarCraft is an IP that probably Chris Metzen and them were worried about consistency and stuff, because you could tell they actually really love this franchise. Because, yeah, just little Easter eggs like that. It's cool to see that get sprinkled in.
Yeah, big time. Speaking of the bar, Joey Ray's bars, I think it goes without saying, if you guys, I don't remember where the phrase is in StarCraft 1, but one of the Marines or somebody in the cinematic says, "Hey there, Joey Ray." Does that ring a bell to you guys, or is it just me?
That does not. Is that for you, Ian?
No, it doesn't actually. Not right now. I don't know what you're talking
I'm
about.
gonna dig it. Have the text on the screen confirm it. But I'm fairly confident in the cinematic, the first cinematic on the Terran campaign, where the two guys are driving down the road and hit the Zergling. I think one of them mentions Joey Ray. So I'm gonna go.
I don't think
confirm
so.
that. What?
I don't think so. That guy's name is Lester.
Lester.
That's a Zergling, Lester. Smaller type of Zerg.
Smaller type of Zerg.
But maybe. It could be.
Yeah, there could be.
I don't know. I'm gonna find out now. I guess that's my mission, to find out, right? So I'll confirm it on the screen, whether it is or not. I'll eat it if it's not. But okay. So what I think was cool about the going on to the Joey Ray bar, obviously, is that my notes are confident that a lot of the music in that bar was some custom-made music. I think Blizzard was rich enough to hire some bands to kind of make new music for the game, but they clearly were using other music that we know, like Sweet Home Alabama, unless they changed it up a little bit.
I think that hasn't been changed up. I mean, obviously, Zergling, Shotgun, and You is an original song.
Exactly. Yeah. But the whole Sweet Home Alabama song basically in there confirms that this is our universe, right? It's just an alternative future. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and somehow Sweet Home Alabama survived through everything.
I think what was mentioned in one of the like texts or something as you're reading through the old manuals is that they liked the old classic rock from Earth, and so that's what they kept. So you get some of that vibe still.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the Terran, the general Terran that we're introduced to, where they follow that southern drawl, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're all rednecks.
Yep.
Well, I mean, there's the connection, the mention of the Confederacy.
Yeah.
They all have southern
And we've
accents.
mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Briefly, Joey Ray's bar is actually a connection to a Blizzard employee, Joey Ray Hall, who is a longtime Blizzard employee that was very famous and has been referenced in many other things. And so they, because of their connection to him and his work on the game and the team, they actually named Joey Ray's bar after him.
Wow. They do a lot of that. Have a lot of those tie-ins with like people who worked there, which is cool.
It's especially Overwatch. I know Torbjorn was actually a name of an employee there. I think it's Metzner or something. Is like, that's the coolest name I've ever heard.
Oh my gosh.
Torbjorn. Obviously, you guys noticed the dancing night elf in the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course.
Yeah, everybody who's played World of Warcraft will notice that.
I love all the little Easter eggs like that, though. There's stuff like that in there. The the Hydralisk in Warcraft 3 that you can find and
Mhm.
get on your team, and then they bring that stuff into Starcraft 2 again. Oh man, I'm forgetting some of the other good Easter eggs that you find in Starcraft 2 now, but that one's fun.
There was the Tauren. Yeah, the Tauren Marine.
Oh yeah, the Tauren Marine.
There's the Tauren Marine. There's also what's the name of the band? The Tauren High Chieftain. Well, what's
Yeah,
that?
level 7. The name keeps changing.
I
I think
know
it's
it
like level
does.
60 High Chieftain or something.
High Chieftain, but that I know that they have a Easter egg in this game as well.
Yeah.
There's some
Yeah, I
of that
think
going
that
on.
is the Tauren Marine. This guy.
Speaking of, I don't know if this counts as an Easter egg, but Gabriel Tosh, was he just let me put it this way. I thought for sure his voice actor was going to be Juan Somdi. I don't know if Ian played as far into WoW to get to that character, but
Well, maybe not, but it's definitely. I would put money down. It's the same guy that voices all the trolls in Warcraft 3.
so thank you for bringing that up. So Juan Somdi, he's a really he came in Battle for Azeroth. He's one of the best characters modern Blizzard has made, right? But he's a troll. He's a Loa god over the trolls. And I thought for sure he was going to be Bonsai. It turns out he's actually the voice of Vol'jin. So there you go.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he's Vol'jin. But the fact that
Yes.
he has little voodoo dolls, I'm like, it's just the trolls in StarCraft.
But yeah, when you play that, especially because again that came out during WoW, and so then you've got Gabriel Tosh doing those things and saying stuff to you, the voice lines. You're like, I'm just playing with the troll. I'm just playing with like a Warcraft forest troll, or it's really an island troll. Did you guys like Tosh? Did you choose Tosh more than Nova more often? What was your normal inclination the first time through that you played, or the first time that you played through after a long time? What did you like go with immediately?
So I'll be honest with you, I don't remember what I did my first time, but this time I went with Tosh. It's weird because I would naturally go with Nova just because she's like a hot white chick, but Tosh is more likable in the campaign. So he has that effect on you where you've been with him, and Nova she's just has the Confederacy up her butt. So you're like, so I went with Tosh this time.
Well, not the Confederacy. The
The
Manx Empire,
the
basically.
Dominion. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
the Dominion.
Yep, the Dominion. My bad.
I went with Tosh actually the first time I played. Other times I've kind of just switched back and forth because I want to see both of them. I probably went with Nova more times than Tosh, honestly, after just because I like the Ghost unit more than the Spectre.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
I think the first time I played through, I also went with Tosh. I'm with Alex. I probably would have defaulted to Nova too, but I went with Tosh because he also is more anti-Dominion, which is James Raynor's like whole thing. So of course I wanted to just be all into the story for that. But then you play other times, you play through, and I've definitely played with Nova. I like both the Spectre and the Ghost. I also like that they give you options and choices, and you can try to work with both character types depending on which way that you pick. So that was like a fun thing about the game, is really the first time in a Blizzard game where they give you choices that affect how your gameplay, and up to a small level, like your storytelling, will also kind of unfold, and the characters that follow you. You know, the story is pretty linear, but it gets you that minor deviation that makes it kind of fun.
Yeah.
So actually, fun fact is in Heart of the Swarm, Nova mentions when I think it's like the second level of the campaign when you're Kerrigan and Raynor running out the facility, and Raynor gets cut off and finds Nova. And Nova says something like, if you had helped with my Tosh problem, I would have looked the other way. So it looks like the Tosh, helping Tosh is actually canon in the game.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
Well, is that, you're saying that's in the Nova campaign?
That's in the
Heart of the
Starcraft, the
Swarm
Heart of
campaign.
Swarm
It
campaign.
is. It is, but it's hard to say if that's. Oh, that's true. I get what you're saying. I wonder though, because I haven't beaten the whole Nova campaign.
Yeah. I'll say I checked if it does either way, and no, it never changes which way you chose in League's
Yeah, that's right. I remember that now. That's right.
So basically, anybody who chose Nova and gets to that scene is like, "What the crap, Nova?
Pretty much.
I did help you."
Right. All the Gooners are like, but I did.
Like, no.
Oh, mommy Nova, no.
Come on, we know that's why most people are choosing Nova.
Obviously.
I mean, yeah. I mean, otherwise she's just some random ghost that calls. I mean, if she's wasn't hot, nobody'd pick her.
Can we just, for 1 minute, bow our heads and rest in peace for the fact that we didn't get StarCraft Ghost?
Yeah, I'm sad.
I'm very sad. It would have
I
been
think,
so great.
especially with like technology and systems and the engines that we have now, it could have happened. It could happen still. I think they still bring it up every once in a while. I don't know, but yeah, it's too bad now.
You know what would be great is if Blizzard can just give the code, just put it online like other companies have done with abandoned games, and let the fans finish it.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. Just saying. It's definitely a possibility. I'd imagine the code or whatever they have left of it still exists. So, wonder if that's ever been brought up.
Apparently, they didn't save all the old classic code and had to rewrite it. So, who knows? For WoW, at least.
I know we're getting off topic, even though the topic is StarCraft II now. But I remember when Ghost was being touted as like this big thing that was going to happen coming out. I was very, very invested in all of the information that was getting put out and leaked, just because I was so interested in a new Blizzard IP at that time. I remember them saying all of these lofty goals and ideas of what they wanted it to be. I can tell you, I have played games now that I know were what they had been envisioning for Ghost. The systems and stuff like that, but they probably didn't have it then, so I would give it to them. But I think about some games that have come out in the last 5-10 years, they definitely could do what they want to do now. I just don't know if they just don't think it's going to be worth it. That's probably what it is. It's all about that money anyways, right? But
right. The Ghost thing's a complex topic. I followed it like you did as well. I remember it was actually, I think, handed over to another company that was making most of it, like a contractor deal, and they just overall weren't satisfied with it. This was old Blizzard. If it wasn't fit to their code, then they didn't want it. It was a very different time, right?
yeah.
Yeah, they really held back things until it was done.
Yep.
Now they kind of just spit things out.
Right. So, here's a fun little fact about the voice of Jim Raynor, Robert Clotworthy. He's obviously a voice actor. So usually when you look up the career of a voice actor, you're like, oh, let's see if they've done anything else I'm familiar with. Usually when you look these people up, they play all sorts of these weird, obscure characters in these shows you've probably never seen. Usually the case. It's kind of similar with him. He's done a lot of voice acting and a lot of stuff I'm not familiar with. But he did do one thing I'm very familiar with. He is the narrator on Ancient Aliens.
Don't. We've already been distracted. Don't even try, Alex.
That's all I'm saying.
All we know is he knows something, man. StarCraft is real out there.
The guy who narrates Ancient Aliens is Jim Raynor.
Good for him.
Oh, man.
Speaking of aliens, there's a scene in this game that made me laugh this time, particularly this time when I played it. It's when they finally reveal Kerrigan's back. The Zerg is attacking again. And it shows, like, on the computer screen a glimpse of her walking by. Did it not just look like they were ripping off that scene from Signs?
Probably.
That's what I thought. I'm like, hey, it's the sign scene.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, it was pretty popular during the time.
Was it?
No.
Since we're on the topic, let me throw this out. Let me throw this out right now. I don't know if you guys are going to agree with me, but at least for this expansion, as an example, I don't know how much it plays into. Actually, some of it I think plays into Heart of the Swarm and maybe Legacy of the Void. But my point is that the style, especially with the ending of the campaign, with the sunset and with the general music choice they pick with a woman kind of singing, it has a very. I think they were influenced by 300. And this is what I was thinking as I'm playing, especially when I get to those final cinematics, because it has, like I said, the soundtrack was similar to like a woman just kind of doing this low hum sing with this colorful sunset. That was just my theory, right? Well, I end up watching a documentary that came with the collector's edition where they talked about the making of StarCraft II. And so you get to see the camera guy walking around Blizzard headquarters, and you have Chris Metzen talking, and they show you a bunch of these people. There is, during this time, right when StarCraft II, Wings of Liberty was made, during this very time, there is a giant mural of 300 in the Blizzard HQ. Talking like Metzen put it there. Like it's taken up a whole wall. So I'm just like, there it is, right there. It confirms what I thought. I think Metzen was taking cues from like Snyder's stylistic vision and put it in this game. Maybe unknowingly, but I do. I think there was some type of influence there.
Maybe. I mean, 300 was very popular, and I think it crossed into the same groups of people that liked, that movie. I mean, I loved that movie when it came out. We were obsessed, if you guys remember.
We saw it multiple times.
Yeah, we did. And then the same people I think that like that movie probably like video games and stuff like this too. Like it was super hyped up, and that's cinematography style is still pretty strong right now.
Oh, but since I brought it up, that documentary as they're going around, I had to mention this because wow, they interviewed several people like the actors, the game developers, all that, and it was pretty cool. Like you get to learn a lot. They got to one group, and I think this particular group was focusing on like the game mechanics. And you remember how like this is the time where Blizzard is full of the frat boy culture? Let's just say it how it is, right? Well, this group that they interviewed in the documentary is really awkward. Like, it didn't age well. They were, like, trying to be funny, but they were only funny within, like, their little group of work buddies, I think. And they're saying, like, derogatory, sexist stuff. And I'm like, wow, that piece on the documentary didn't age well. So, but to add to that documentary and what I learned from it, this was a fact I thought was very cool about this game, StarCraft II. Did you know StarCraft II is the first Blizzard game, let's say RTS. We'll just say RTS because you have StarCraft and Warcraft before it. It's the first Blizzard game where the AI doesn't cheat. So I'll give you an example. StarCraft 1, the AI is as omnipotent as you think it is. It's doing everything all at once. How you would imagine an AI operates. It's building all these units. It knows where you are. It always knows where you are. When they designed the AI in StarCraft 2, they actually tried to make it similar to a player. So they gave it a queue of commands. So it couldn't do 10, 20 commands at once. It could only do one command at once. And they tried to limit that queue to match what a good player does. So basically it's doing what a human does. It's going to go to the barracks and start building. And then it's going to go to the SUVs and assign them. And it also doesn't know where you are. These AIs are designed to try to find you, just like a human would. So Blizzard was very proud in this new AI tech where they're like, this is the first time our AI doesn't cheat, and we've replicated it to work more like a human. I thought that was awesome. But there's a fun fact for you.
Actually, another fun fact is I think it's like DeepMind or something. I mean, predates ChatGPT or anything, but they were actually running AI models, like old ones, in StarCraft using them as for opponents or players. That basically they were just throwing them kind of in, I think, just in ranked matches and seeing how far it could go up. So StarCraft is kind of a test bed for AI for a little bit.
Wow.
I think it was, I can't remember, I think it was like IBM that was behind it, but yeah, probably nothing like ChatGPT or something, but it goes to show that AI kind of has been around for a while that can do some pretty good decisions like that.
That's way cool.
I think it feels pretty obvious when you talk about playing multiplayer, playing the computers in StarCraft 2 versus in StarCraft 1. Because when you do it in StarCraft 1, you have an option to have them be like higher difficulty, different levels of difficulty, but it always basically just feels like no matter what, like you said, the computer always knows where you are. They know where all the minerals, they know the layout of the map, they know everything. The difference is on the lower difficulties in StarCraft 1, they're just stupid and slow. But then when you wrap it up to whatever the crazy level difficulty was in StarCraft 1, it is, like you said, Alex, they have the ability to do everything, multiple things all at once in a queue, and that's literally what they're doing. They're just pouring it on you, and it is insane to play against. But in StarCraft 2, the computer's always scouting to find you. They don't always know where you are, but some of the levels it's very obvious. You know where they're going to spawn 90% of the levels 90% of the time. So they know. But at the same time, they're still trying to figure things out, which I think is a pretty cool, smart system.
I agree.
You can definitely tell in StarCraft 1 when you have Templars of Psionic Storm and they just do it perfectly every time on your units.
Oh my, don't even mention that. I hate that so much. Stupid little psyops.
Yeah, or their queens will broodling your key heroes on hard difficulty.
Yeah. When you have an
Oh my
invincibility
gosh.
cheat activated.
Yep.
There was a level in this game, StarCraft 2. It was the one where the fire is slowly approaching you, so you have to keep base hopping. I remember the final battle in that one gave me grief. I had to restart it once or twice, I think, but it was because there were like 3 High Templar that would just Psionic Storm me. So even still in this game, the Psionic Storm gave me grief.
Yeah, you really have to pick those guys off before you go in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm glad we're talking about the levels. I enjoyed Wings of Liberty. I think I like the levels and the types of levels as StarCraft 2 kind of like develops, the other expansions, if you want to call them expansions or whatever we're going to call them, right? The other campaigns.
Yeah.
But Wings of Liberty is fun. Some of the levels are very short, very quick. Like the first one you can speed run through in like 8 minutes or whatever. But I also like that there were. I'm gonna talk about 2, even though there's plenty of really good fun levels in Wings of Liberty. There's 2 that always stood out to me because I remember one of them is just like a level that you play in StarCraft 1, which is a very iconic Starship Troopers type feel, and that's where you have to defend Marsara against the Zerg that are going to try to destroy your base. It's like the second or third level that you play. If you guys remember that, you just have your base up on the hill and you're trying to defend.
It's the one where you're waiting for the battle cruiser, right?
Yeah, you're waiting for Matt Horner to come pick you up.
Yeah.
Because Jim's like out doing Rebellion Revolution things. I love that because it's a throwback to StarCraft 1, and it is a moment that kind of helps like pin the genre, right? In a lot of ways, it feels like Starship Troopers-esque that you're just holding out while this wave of bug xenomorph creatures comes in. That's fun. That was cool. And on the hard difficulties on Brutal, it's still actually a pretty easy level, but it's fun. And then the other one that I really, really enjoyed is the night level, where it's got aliens references, it's got zombie movie references, where you're in the center of the map, and at night all of the creatures come out with different variants, and they're basically zombies overwhelming your base, and in the daytime you have to go out and kill them. That was a fun level with a fun mechanic. That one I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I just love getting siege tanks and everything and just mowing down those zombies coming in. It's just always fun.
Dude, my favorite thing about Terrans in general, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I always go to siege tanks. There's something so pleasurable about having this giant wave of these tanks to just mow everything down. And my favorite super units were the siege tank units. I don't think the second I was able to get those, I upgraded them. I take them any chance I get, but I even use them offensively because those things hit so freaking hard. It's unreal how fun the siege tank unit is in this game, to be honest. But as far as my favorite level goes, it's not my favorite, but the one that stuck with me is the one where the lava rises and you have to keep going up and down. And I think that's a level where you can finally utilize the Reapers. Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
so
that's where
many
you get
things.
them.
Yeah, so many little things like that within the campaign that really makes it a fun experience to play over and over again.
Yeah, that level was just there's just something about it, always going up and down and having to defend basically the mining operation going on. That was just a fun level.
And that's what makes the campaign still a lot of fun. Is it's not just the regular, okay, build a base, find the enemy, kill the enemy. Like, there's these other additional sub objectives that help you do that while you're also playing the same macro game, which is build a base, build an army, get minerals, right? Explore, exploit, and destroy or whatever. But I like all
Yeah.
the other things too. The one that I always really hated is the Tal'Darim gas one, where you first meet the
Oh
Tal'Darim and you
my
have to
gosh.
siphon the gas. I can't beat that on brutal. That
Dude,
level
that
is
level
so
is
annoying.
brutal and brutal. You have
That
to
level's brutal on hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on hard it kicks my butt.
Yeah, you have to get like a bunch of upgrades and come back to that level. Oh my gosh.
You're
Yeah,
right.
that level is
You're
No,
talking
I
about
can't even believe. I don't even know I beat it last time. Honestly, I think it's just Goliaths upgrade them as fast as possible, and just you have to do everything super fast, so they just overwhelm you.
that's a level where you have to have good, like really good micro and
Yeah,
macro,
yeah.
because you have to do both in order to not let them get like 3 things or whatever it is, and that ends the level for you. It's very frustrating. It's very tough.
okay. Well, the one on brutal that was always one of the worst is the Odin level with Tychus, where he's just you have to go with Tychus or he dies, and you gotta have a bunch of SCBs with him because in brutal they just hit him hard, and it's oh my gosh, and then they start hitting your base hard in the middle, and it's just a crapshoot, man. That level took me so many times this time to beat it.
I love how the narrative, the whole explanation to why it's hard, is because Tychus is too dumb to slow down.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, he's too dumb to turn on his comms.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
If you're not gonna tell me to have some fun, I'm gonna have myself some fun.
have some fun.
Tychus is such a interesting character to throw in there. He almost has like no point in the game, but they do a good job, not like great, but they do a good job in the writing of actually making him still valuable, because he connects Raynor to the Mobius core, which is what connects into the Prince and eventually to Kerrigan. So like he has a very valid purpose, but otherwise he's just like riding along. Every once in a while, he's like, "Hey, Jimmy, let's make some money," and it's like, "Oh, that doesn't sound sus at all, Tychus. Let's go." You know?
Yeah. But I do just have to love Tychus because he was a character that just wore everything on his sleeve. Like you knew this guy was trouble, but you still love the guy just because it's just I don't know. He's just Tychus. This is what you can say about it.
Tychus, I'm glad you guys brought Tychus up because truthfully, he's kind of the other face of StarCraft II, like at least Wings of Liberty. I think he kind of brought in a charm to that game that nobody else really could, and he kind of equally makes it as much as Jim. They both have a dynamic going, right? And if anybody's interested, the novels really kind of open up his character. The one thing that I'll mention is that, and Jim Raynor even says it himself, he's like, Tychus is actually, despite how he sounds, despite how he acts, he looks big and dumb, and when he gets angry, he is. But he's like actually super intelligent when it comes to street smarts. Like the guy is actually like, there's a reason him and Jim got away with so much and did so much. But Tychus, he has his own flaws, right?
I,
But he's a great character. The color, the personality he brings into the game. There's one scene in the campaign that made me laugh so hard that for some reason this time, and it's when Tychus, like, I guess Matt Horner drops information to Tychus about how like Jim and Kerrigan used to be together, and he's just like, "You're saying Jimmy and her shacked up?" Just
You say him, her and Jimmy were
Yeah.
shacked up.
it's just great.
I think they do mention. I mean, you've read the books and stuff, but I think they do mention in the game too that Tychus has a really good feel for tactics. So like
Yes.
in the fights, him and Jimmy were both like that, and were both like forced to be reckoned with. But Jimmy also has the ability to see the long-term strategy a lot better, which is why they worked really well together.
I agree.
I think, and my initial feel of Tychus, and I got to, because it had been so long since I had played StarCraft II when I redid it. When you start playing it, if you're like me, I gravitated towards Matt Horner as a character more so. Like I enjoyed his character, but he's like a stereotype of, I'm straight-laced boot guy. I'm gonna make sure I do everything just right. But he has his like little quirks and flaws and stuff with the pirate girl and everything that makes it really fun and interesting too. But he is more interesting to me at first than Tychus is, because Tychus doesn't get much, like he doesn't add much to the game other than, hey, I'm gonna make some like missions for you, and that. But then as the game goes on and on, you get to see Tychus a little bit more, and I wish you could see a little bit more of like what's described in the books and stuff like that. But him and Jimmy interact, and then he like gets upset and cries and breaks the bar up and stuff like that. And it's kind of a weird, it's kind of a weird moment in the game. It gets tense, and then at the end of Wings of Liberty and stuff like that too, you get to see a different side of Tychus' character, and you also see Jimmy, who's like very kind of broken up about it because he knows that Tychus went to jail for him in the long run. So you get to see a different part of Tychus' character you don't really see. But that's like the loyalty part.
Yeah, that scene where he breaks up the bar. I'm not trying to go off of how we're talking, how Tychus is really interesting here. I wanted to bring that up actually because that's the one part of the campaign that I feel like the writing is a little weird.
Yeah.
And I say that, yeah, because like it's a cool cinematic, but all that happens is Jim Raynor basically just proves he's not a pussy because he just beats Tychus up, and it doesn't address any of the real concerns any of the men had. All he did was just prove that he's not a pussy. And they're like, yeah, I'm willing to follow that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of like, what was the point of this scene again?
Yeah. There were some things that are kind of out of left field, like the one with Jim Raynor, drinking at the bar and Matt Horner getting mad at him, for not knowing what to do and who he is. That's kind of like, that kind of came out of left field. Like, I didn't feel like that was what Jim Raynor is like until that cinematic happened.
I would agree, but again, I think what it's really trying to show, and that's early on, that's like the first or second one that you get, right, is Jim Raynor's been fighting this fight for a long time, and Brood War's already happened, so people's morale is pretty shaken, and they don't know when the next attack from the Queen of Blades is going to be, or if the UED is going to show up again. All the things that happened with Brood War's campaign should still be lingering, because it was a long time for those of us that played the games from the end of Brood War to Wings of Liberty coming out. But for the people in for the characters, it wasn't so much. It's all fresh. And so Jim has been going through a lot, and he's in this kind of losing rebellion where he's fighting these guerrilla tactics that are very, very difficult to stomp out, but at the same time, it's very difficult to win. And I think I like that it gives Jim Raynor's character depth, like emotional depth, to be like, yeah, stuff sucks, and it's going to be hard for him, and he might even have a little kind of like alcoholic depressionism going on about the fact that everything's tough, and he's got his subordinate who believes in him and the cause that pulls him back out of it. And then as the story picks up, you see Jim get that fire back and get that focus back and become the badass that we all recognize and remember from Starcraft 1.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, I'll just say I'll agree with that. I'm just thinking, just in the chain of events and stuff, it kind of was just a random thing that I thought that kind of happened. I'm like, I wish maybe they had a little bit more on that. This is kind of that, and then I guess they kind of touched a little bit more when they're going to Char and everybody's saying it's suicide, and Jim's kind of like, we're going, and that's that kind of attitude. So
yeah,
I guess there's a little bit more, but I just thought where that was in the game is kind of just came out of nowhere. So it's like Jim just seemed kind of cheery and everything, and like getting along with everybody, and all of a sudden he's just at the bar like drinking himself to death or something. I don't know. It's weird.
I think it's easy to say that. I agree with both you guys. Ian's got a good way of looking at this as far as how it makes sense in the story. Jackson's complaint addresses more of just how it kind of feels shoehorned in, and it maybe could have just been done a little better and where it was put. But it's hard for me to kind of remember how I felt when I played this game just by itself, because my view of Jim Raynor has evolved a lot. When you read the comics, because he's in the comics, and you read the novels, he becomes a very complex character, and he's evolved a lot. What I actually really like about his character, give you an example, is that in the novels, when he's with Tychus doing his heists, he's regularly going to the bars, strip clubs, and sleeping around, living kind of like that outback life, and he's feeding off that depression because his wife died, and he had a child who Jim Raynor actually had. One of the reasons he connected so well with Kerrigan, I don't know if we mentioned this on the podcast before, is he had a child who was a ghost. He was taken from the Confederacy. So he's always had this dark side to him. And in this campaign, it cracks me up a lot. The cinematic is funny, but it does fit his character, is when he has that moment to settle down and go off with that girl, the scientist, and he's like, guys like me don't get second chances, darling. and that is a big step of his character, because he truly doesn't feel like he deserves that, and he's moved past the whole love life. He's older, he's more mature, he's grows old, and he's also thinking about Kerrigan. That's just something that's plaguing him forever. So, which leads to the conclusion of the expansion or the game.
Yeah, I think he's thinking about Kerrigan. He's also thinking about, what does the long term for Jim really look like? He started this revolution, and at that point in the game, when he's with the doc and the scientist, especially depending on how you path the decisions to go from one world to the other. I'll get into that in a second, about like kind of how weird it feels to jump from one world to another world and back and stuff, the different storylines, the story branches. But in that point in the game, Jim is back into it and he's more fully committed, and you have to think, what does the end state look like? He probably sees for himself, no matter what he does, whether he's successful or not against Arcturus, because that's what the main storyline is about, is Jim bringing down Minsk. Everything else that happens is really building the rest of StarCraft II, right? The other campaigns and everything. Mm-hmm. But for Jim, it's get Minsk and kill him. That, I think, gives you more pause too, or gives Jim more pause too, because like, I can't just run off and abandon the rebellion to go with this woman, even though he probably wants to. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you almost are like secretly rooting for him to do it because he's a good guy.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. The first time I beat this game, and the way you brought it up really nails it, because going into what I'm trying to get to, the first time I beat this game, I had mixed feelings, because I was a very big Zerg Kerrigan fanboy, right? Still am, but I was I didn't know what to think about bringing Kerrigan back, right? When I played it this time, now that it's been over a decade and I've been able to kind of just look at it through a different lens, I will say this. I actually really like how this expansion ends and where its narrative brings, because it's not about Kerrigan. This expansion is all about Jim. And he's saving that I think the ending, the writing and the ending cinematic, I think is pretty great, because this whole time, this for like how many years? A couple years, he's been saving that one bullet to kill Arcturus, but he ends up using it on his best friend. There's a lot to take from that, and it's because it's like he says at the end, we have choices to make. It goes right down to that: is how much do I really like Tychus? How much do I really like Kerrigan? How far am I willing to go? But what I love so much about StarCraft II: Wings of Liberty is that here's a really epic universe that has very big forces in play. And for once, we have basically a very simple, down to earth, relatable human character who's not some god, who's able to make a decision to help save the fate of the universe. And it goes down to this really emotional moment. And when I got to that last cinematic again and saw it, it was weird. It was like, wow, I'm feeling stuff this time. I really liked it. So I'll just end it saying that I thought the expansion ended on a pretty cool note.
Yeah. I guess we can't say an expansion because it's the base game, but
yeah.
Right.
What
The
was,
campaign.
I think, what was the line he said? We are who we choose to be, or something? Did I get that right?
We have our decisions to make.
Yeah, it's something like
something
that.
around there.
But I think that was kind of the crux of this, was that Tychus was the one who couldn't really let it go in the end.
Yeah.
And it was Jim that kind of had to grow past that and finally have to do the decision to take Tychus down, unfortunately. So I think that was kind of just the message of it, we are who we choose to be, it's kind of, we have to make our own fate, choose who we want to be in the end. That was kind of nothing, no one else can do that for us.
Yeah.
What's really cool to kind of reflect on is that the voice actor of Jim Raynor, Robert, people asked him, like, what's your favorite like part of that whole like StarCraft II saga? And I guess his favorite part that really stuck to him was it was when Jim Raynor's carrying Kerrigan and he just simply says, "It's okay, I got you." He felt that part basically summed up Jim Raynor perfectly. Like, this is the character that who he is. Just like, don't worry about it, I got you. Thought that was kind of cool.
That is cool.
That is.
It's very cool.
So I guess before we probably go, which did you guys choose first for the doctor choice? Did you choose her or the Protoss?
Her.
I chose her.
Yeah, because I chose her also first.
I don't know what it is. It's kind of like what Ian says. You're playing through the eyes of Raynor, so it just feels like the better choice.
Yeah.
It feels like the more Raynor choice.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it did feel like that was the choice that Jim Raynor had done. You're kind of, the first time you're going through the story, you don't know which way it's going to go out. So it's kind of like, well, I want to side with the humans, because I'm a human.
Right, and you're trying to help save humanity. And the Protoss, like, up to that point, the Protoss has just been kind of annoyances in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll just bring it up here.
Well, except for Zeratul, it just turns into the crazy prophet, man, dude.
Yeah, we didn't even touch that.
I know we did not.
But I do want to quickly say, that is the one thing about the game that was kind of weird. So when we were playing through it together, and we were talking about the choices that we were making and stuff, and Jack had beat the campaign like 72 years before we even started it, apparently. But like, it was interesting to see how you guys would play it differently through the decisions of which planets and which stories to go to, because you're like, oh yeah, I always get the siege tanks, and then I do the science saving the science girl and the human missions. So you have siege tanks against the zombies. I always do those missions early and don't have siege tanks at that point. Because
Really?
it's one of the decisions in how you path it. I don't feel like I ever had siege tanks in that level.
Huh.
I'm gonna have to go back through and look at it again. Yeah, because you remember you can go to different paths and then come back to you like go one way and you're like, okay, I'll do like 2 or 3 levels in a row, and then I come back to the choice to go back to this other place that I could have gone to, and eventually you have to go all the way back to We Invade Char. Like that's where it ends up, right? But there's a couple of random paths where you turn off some levels, or you could like go to one level, come back and go to another level, and then come back and then go back to the second level with that same path until it wraps up. And it wraps up with the one that we're talking about. You either make the decision to save the humans and the science lady, right? Or you side with Protoss. And that's how that little thing kind of wraps up. And there's like one other pathway or like branch choice in the game, the Nova, Tosh, stuff like that. So if you do that, it gives you different tech options and choices, which I always thought was interesting how you guys kind of played through it differently than I did.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm actually glad you brought up the whole techs, upgrading, all that stuff, because one of my favorite things about the game is all the little details and lore hidden in there if you actually take the time to look.
Oh yeah.
And the description of the Viking pilots, that was something worth mentioning. So the Viking ships, when they transform, as you can imagine, it's actually extremely dangerous. The pilot has to be trained in order to maneuver himself in a different spot so the machine doesn't crush him. And they have a nickname for Viking pilots. I guess the Viking pilots gave a nickname for newbies, people who have yet to be in a transforming a Viking during combat, and they're called cherries. Basically, the moment you experience going through the transformation in combat, you popped your cherry.
Yeah. I loved all those little things. The fire bats have a fun little one.
You know, I'm actually bringing these up right now. Is the Marauders one is hilarious.
Yeah, the Marauders are amazing.
I look at the tech that's brought into this game is pretty cool and fun. It's very Starcraft. I really enjoyed the different additions too. I don't appreciate they got rid of the Goliath, but you do get to play it, so that's great. But when you play Starcraft II main, there weren't any Goliaths originally for a while, right?
I don't think there are any still.
No, you're right. You can't play them in the main multiplayer game, right?
Right.
But I think the idea of the Viking is cool. I think and I hate to say this because we're talking about a space fantasy video game, but from like a realistic application, the Vikings don't make any sense. Like, why could they not shoot ground and air with the weapon systems they have? Why do they have to transform? Like, they could transform to walk, sure, but flying is so much better anyways than walking on the ground. Like, such a dumb idea.
Just reasons, okay? Reasons.
Hey,
right? Just
the rule of cool.
The rule of cool. There you go.
And it's cool until let's talk about the best cinematic out of all of them, and that's when the Zerg are invading the Terran homeworld, and that Viking transforms to shoot at an Ultralisk and just gets smashed because he goes to the ground like an idiot instead of shooting it with missiles. Like, what are we talking about?
That entire sequence literally is 110% rule of cool.
It is all just rule of cool.
It's all it is.
All rule of cool.
But if you turn your brain on, you're like, huh?
You're like, whoa. Hey, you want to talk about stuff that doesn't make sense? One of the upgrades in this game, and it's an upgrade on the tanks. It's a heal generating quote heal generating biosteel. Like, I'm trying to make sense of how this steel heals itself, but there you go.
Brother, come on, that one, that's
son.
easy.
Is it nanobite?
Nano.
Oh, yeah, nano machine, son. I stand corrected.
It's the plot of G.I. Joe. What else do you need?
Fair enough. I'm done.
Idiot over here. You know how nano works.
I'm just going to bring this up briefly because we're going to talk about it more. The next one is you get the little glimpse. You get the little glimpse of Zeratol talking to Tassadar. Tassadar shows up, and then you get these plot points showing that the Overmind really wasn't so bad of a guy. And I'm like, here it is. Here's the early signs of the Blizzard retcons coming in. They didn't go that heavy-handed with retcons in StarCraft 2, in my opinion. I think it still all holds together fairly well, but Blizzard was on a roll with their retcon writing at this time with WoW, with Diablo. It was a very standard thing, and nothing necessarily wrong with that. But I was just saying that you can get little tidbits of it there.
Yeah, that kind of was what Metzen loved comic books, so there's just
Yep.
always something more, there's always another objective or something. I don't know if the Overmind could be seen as a good guy, I don't know, but I guess it was saying like he's fighting against his fate by, making Kerrigan or something.
Well,
I think the Overmind did nothing wrong. Changed my mind.
Yeah.
Well,
he's just trying to live his life.
A good way to put what you're bringing up, Jack, that very much falls in the comic book logic is there's always a more evil bad guy behind the lens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, there's always something more sinister and bigger and stronger that we've been missing the whole time.
Yeah, that was basically Amon. I mean, that was literally at the end of StarCraft 1 with Stukov, where he's like, I am something you more than you could imagine,
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, very comic book.
I mean, that's how all of WoW's writing was too.
Pretty much the dark side of StarCraft, coming through. It was somebody else that sent me.
Yeah, I gotta show you that picture, Ian, where it shows all the WoW bosses with like the puppet strings, and it's like 10 of them.
And they all lead to the jailer.
Yeah, it's all going to the jailer. Then there's someone above the jailer.
Oh my gosh.
And then the jailer's like, well, I was only preparing you for what's to come.
Yes.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
Yes.
Thanos was really trying to help us. Get ready for the next thing.
Get ready. We'll see it this year in Doomsday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously just Disney's
guess.
greed is what he's preparing us for.
Yes.
Oh, I do have one more. I have another thing to mention. There's one plot point in this game that didn't age well. And this is a very common thing in all sci-fi. Older sci-fi, there's always going to be something where you're like, yeah, that didn't turn out how they thought it would. It's how they think an audio bit of Minx is going to convince people that he's bad.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that didn't... Yeah,
that did not age well.
That's right. We didn't even talk about the silly...
Well, at the same time, though, did it? Because, I mean, we can see that. If somebody does an AI clip of somebody, everybody's probably going to believe it.
Well, at the same time, though, everybody just ignores it. So it actually was...
Yeah, so it kind of was
prescient. Nobody actually cared about Minx saying those things. They all just kind of played it under the rug, and he didn't get deposed.
Yeah.
That's not like something happened right now.
I guess you could interpret it either way.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
You could. Even though they straight up have a clip in the game where it looks like everyone's like, oh, he's a bad guy. Like, he is. But then it just obviously doesn't get far.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and what's funny is you can't, because I was thinking, well, maybe this is like an alternate universe where they don't have advanced AI. No, they do. Their AI.
No, they have.
Yes. Their AI is more advanced than our current AI right now. So, well, there you go.
Gosh, oh my gosh, I might have just found it. Here we go. Okay, so here's the fire bat. The fire bat suit contains a volatile mix of gases that seep into the operator compartment. This may explain why Firebat personnel are almost universally resocialized criminals or psychotic pyromaniacs.
Yes.
And then here's this one. This is a quote from a Firebat. Fire washes the skin off the bone and the sin off the soul. It cleans away the dirt, and my mama didn't erase herself, no dirty boy. Yeah. And then it's Franco Tildon, widely credited as the first fighting Firebat, reformed mass murderer.
I love it.
That's very fire bat right there.
It's so
Let's see if I
perfect.
find the Marauder. Here we go. Alright, although the Marauder suit is modified from the CMC 660 Firebat suit, the soldier inside is very different. 47% of Marauder operators have never even been to jail, and only 23% have been accused of murder.
That's fantastic.
And here's Maria Mother Thalesis was an early medevac pilot credited with saving hundreds of lives. She later murdered 2 Marines who reportedly insisted on referring to the medevac as a heel bus. She is rumored to be resocialized and serving happily in the Dominion military.
See, just a bunch of psychos.
So here is the flavor text for the siege tank. Wendell Slovens, Wendell Slovens, an early Crucio operator, installed a sophisticated surround sound system into his ride. Sergeant Slovens was subsequently cut off and surrounded when he failed to hear the order to fall back.
So fun fact. When I was in Bradley's, the Bradley Fighting Vehicles platform that we put troops in and it can move. It's like a mini tank, and I tell tankers that, and they love when I call it a tank because it's not.
Yeah.
They actually get pissed off. I had gunners and people that would splice in their own Bluetooth systems so that we could play Bluetooth through the microphones into Bradley.
That's awesome.
Great. It was great. That's real.
Wow. So it's believable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Ian is going to be the guy that dies when he can't hear the orders.
It's very believable.
So they do have advanced tech and vigilance. That's all I'm saying.
Love it. Cool. Well, that ends our discussion as far as Wings of Liberty, the story of Jim Raynor, is concerned. So thank you guys very much for coming in, discussing this. We're really, really hoping that our next episode won't come out in 2027. So we're gonna try to get that to you guys much sooner. But thanks if you're this far in. Thanks for listening. Appreciate you, and you guys have a nice night.